Good morning to all of you, and I welcome to all of you for this our next session of this Museums Heritage in India. आज हम यहाँ पर म्यूजियम्स इन ओडिशा के बारे में जानकारी लेंगे। हमारे आज के जो वक्ता है श्री जिग्नेश दास जी, थोड़ा सा मैं उनके बारे में परिचय देना चाहूंगा। उन्होंने अपना ग्रेजुएशन जो है वो आर्किटेक्चर में कंप्लीट किया, अभी आज उन्होंने कंप्लीट किया यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी रूरकेला ओडिशा से। फिर उसके बाद उन्होंने अपना एक पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट डिप्लोमा इन अर्बन एनवायरनमेंट मैनेजमेंट में कंप्लीट किया नेशनल लॉ यूनिवर्सिटी न्यू दिल्ली से, एनवायरनमेंट मैनेजमेंट एंड लॉ। उसके बाद उन्होंने अपना मास्टर्स जो है वो कल्चरल हेरिटेज एंड कंजर्वेशन में कंप्लीट किया, और फिर उसके बाद ये उत्कल यूनिवर्सिटी भुवनेश्वर से उन्होंने कंप्लीट किया। फिर उसके बाद उन्होंने आफ्टर हिज मास्टर्स ही क्वालिफाइड UGC नेट एंड जूनियर रिसर्च फेलोशिप आल्सो, एंड pursuing now his PhD in museology and conservation in Department of Museology, and also he is presently working as an assistant professor in conservation Department of Museology in Maharaja Sahajrao University, Baroda, Gujarat, and he's an one best person who is working in diverse fields. He is an architect, a specialist in conservation, museums, history, and now he is present with us. So I welcome to Jignesh ji, and I request to him for to start our today's session.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, sir. So I thank you and the participants in the following course. I hope that we will be able to suffice them with the enough information that we have collected within this period. And so let us begin with today's discussion on museums in Odisha. So is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay. Yes, okay.
Okay. So the state of Odisha is towards the eastern side of India. It is one of the coastal states of India, and it is very close to the Bay of Bengal. One side is covered by the Bay of Bengal, and the rest of the areas or the boundaries are covered by the states of Odisha, states of India. West Bengal towards the east, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Andhra Pradesh. So as you can see, this is a small state with variant climatological differences. We have the hilly areas from the eastern side, and we have some of the coastal areas towards our eastern side as well. Now, when we look at the administrative divisions of this state, there are approximately three divisions. They are the central, north, and south. And within these three divisions, we have 30 districts. So for a small state to have 30 districts, the number of museums in this state, previously when the INTAC and along with the Museums Association of India were compiling a directory of museums in 2000, they saw that in Odisha there were approximately 21 museums back then, and it constituted of the central government, the state government, as well as the private museums. But now in 2021, we are seeing that there are more than 80 museums right now, comprising of all the sectors, including the BBB, that is the public-private partnership. So what is the reason behind that? Why so many museums have come up, especially there has been an increase in the private museums? The various factors that have contributed for this growth are the schemes that have been carried out by the state as well as the central government. Now, some of them are related to connectivity, so regarding the logistic issues, as well as some which have connection to the tourism department, such as the Char Dham Pariyojana, which was started in 2012 or maybe 16. Then we have the Bharatmala phase. They all connect different states together with a line of roads. Apart from that, since this is a coastal region and in the last 2 decades, this state has faced a lot of natural disasters, especially cyclones. So now the people have become aware that they have to do something to preserve their heritage. So in order to preserve the built as well as the movable heritage, which they have collected since the last 1,000 years, they have started creating museums. Now, many of these museums are providing a sustenance for the local communities and craft members to join in and present and safeguard their craft items. Apart from that, there has been an increase in funding for the tourist attraction centers. In these tourist attraction centers, we have some of the built heritage, such as the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, like Konark, and then we have the national level heritage sites like the Puri Jagannath Temple or different other religious areas as well. Apart from that, natural places have also been included in this list. So, because museums and tourism, they all are interrelated up to some extent. The tagline for the Odisha State Museum from the first decade of the 21st century was the soul of incredible India. Eventually, they changed, and now we have it is called as the India's best kept secret. The reason is that the number of the natural sites selected for tourism have increased. So these sites were unknown for a very long time. And we will see how these sites are interconnected to some of the museums as well. So for our case study, I have taken about 7 museums, but out of that, we will look into a little bit of in-depth study regarding 4 museums, and they are the Odisha State Museum, the Kalabhumi Museum, which is the Handloom and Handicrafts Museum. The third is the Odisha State Maritime Museum, which links the intangible cultural heritage of Odisha with the tangible. And the fourth will be the Tribal Museum in Koraput. So out of this, the first 3 are under the Odisha state government as well as the central government funding. But the fourth one is a private museum where they have taken some funding from other government sources. So let us start with the Odisha State Government Museum. Now, when this museum started way back, it was located near to an old bus terminal. So therefore, the connectivity to the other districts of Odisha was prevalent. But now, since the city has expanded radially, this part of the city has become the heart of the city. So therefore, the distance from the international airport, that is the Biju Patnaik International Airport, is approximately 7 minutes by a vehicle. And from the railway station, it will take you 15 minutes to reach. So there is no problem in connectivity when it comes to the Odisha State Museum. So to identify the Odisha State Museum, this is how it looks from the facade, the external facade. And this is a post-modern architecture. We will learn when it was built. It was actually built in 1960s. So back then, they had the idealistic design concepts that they have taken inside, and they have represented them in the elevations as well. So this is the entry to the museum. The entrance for the regular visitors or for visitors with no disabilities, we have the stairs, but there is another entrance where we have a facility for a ramp through which wheelchairs can go through. So as we enter in, we face the replica from Lalitgiri. Now, Lalitgiri is a Buddhist site in Odisha itself. It is located close to Jajpur. So they have taken some of the door jambs or the door frames of that historical remain, and they have represented them in the museum. Now, this area at the entrance, we have the publication center towards the right and the visitor sitting area towards the left. Now, we enter into the main foyer or the visitors waiting area. Now, this visitors waiting area is approximately 50 feet by 40 feet, and it can hold at least 30 people together. They have renovated it in the last 4 to 5 years. And what they have done is that they have brought some of the cultural heritage of Orissa as well as the intangible heritage of Orissa and represented them in human scale model. So as you enter in, towards the left side, you will have a panel which is a visual representation of the important historical battles that have taken in Orissa. So they start from the Kalinga War that was during the Mauryan period around 325 BC. And then from there, it goes into the Kanchi Abhiyan, which was the medieval era. And then from there, we go into the Piker rebellion that happened during the colonial regime. So they have represented this to describe how the people of Orissa have gone through the changes in history and how they have coped to become a state and be connected with Indian nation. Now, towards the right side, this is where they have represented the intangible aspect. So we had a community in Orissa who were known as Sadhavas. So they were the sailors. Now, they were known to travel from Orissa and go through the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean and cross towards the Southeast Asian continent. And over there, they would trade with them in spices, textiles, and up to some extent in very precious stones as well, gemstones. So they have tried to represent that because every year in the old or the former capital of Orissa, which was Cuttack, they celebrate a festival called as the Bali Jatra. And in this Bali Jatra, the people, which is conducted after the completion of the Kartik Mass in November, the Oriya people go to the river Mahanadi and they sail some of the tiny boats for the safe travel and safe passage of their loved kin who are associated in different parts of the world. So this is what they have tried to represent through this mural. Now, as you face in the front, before entering, there is a replica of Mukteshwar temple. Now, Mukteshwar temple was built about in 750 AD, and it is one of the architectural gems of the Kalingan architecture, which exemplifies how the evolution of the Kalingan architecture came from 700 into the Konak temple, which is one of the UNESCO heritage sites. And on the ceiling, we have a mural, which is based on Patachitra, which is a classical painting style of Orissa. Now, so many attributes have been given in this foyer. There is a specific purpose for these attributes. Now, since these replicas are built out of fiberglass or they are built out of some other non-destructible material, they use it for visually challenged people to touch and feel and take an experience of their heritage, while their guide describes them about this form of history. So I have seen that normal visitors are not allowed to touch because they always have a barricade there. But if you have people who are visually impaired, then they can be allowed to touch the surface, and maybe there will be a guide to explain them regarding the heritage material. This is the photograph session that they had when they were trying to convey how museums are looking forward for the completion of the sustainable goals which have been set by UNESCO. And one of the goals considers to integrate as many minorities within our community, since physically disabled or visually impaired people are one of the minorities in our world. They have also been included in this museum experience. So let us look into the historical perspective of the Orissa State Museum. Now, before independence, Orissa became a state based on linguistic basis, and this was probably 1935. Before that, it existed as a part of the Bengal province. So, and within this Bengal province area, the increase or the impetus given to education was great. And out of that impetus was created the Ravenshaw University. So during 1932, the historians Professor N.C. Banerjee and Professor Ghanshyam Das had created a small Odisha State Museum within the university premises. And this is where they would collect any form of archaeological excavations which were conducted through ESI. They would bring it here, they would analyze it, and they would try to rewrite the history. The freedom movement had also started back then for movement for the independence, and 1935 Odisha became a state based on linguistic basis. So the government authority as well as the local civil authorities, the public, they wanted to create an awareness regarding their culture. So the movement for a new museum building had already started before independence of India. The history department had also made a lot of effort to keep the cultural value as well as the museum together within that small premises. So what happened post-independence during 1947 to 48? The capital of Odisha was moved from Cuttack to Bhubaneswar. Because Bhubaneswar was a growing city, there was space to expand. They selected Bhubaneswar as a state capital. And since it became a state capital, they had to move whatever official buildings they had in Cuttack. So they started creating a provincial museum, sorry, a state museum in Bhubaneswar. So by 1960s, the construction of the building block had started. The foundation was laid by late Dr. Rajendra Prasad in 29 December in 1957. And the inauguration was held by Dr. H.K. Mahtab, who was the Chief Minister of Odisha. And he was a noted historian. So he had some effort to make this state museum as what it is right now. So since 1960s, the State Museum has a number of branch museums which establish with different districts of Odisha. They try to help them run these administrative semi-blocks. So there are some district museums in Puri, Dhenkanal, Cuttack, Mayurbhanj, Baripada, Baleଶ୍ୱର. So there are some of these districts where we have associated museums of Odisha State Museum. One of the associated is also the Tribal Museum, which we will look into later on. Now, the administrative structure, since this is a state museum, it lies under the Ministry of Culture. Earlier it was Tourism and Culture, now it is the Ministry of Culture. And under them, we have the Commissioner cum Secretary for the Department of Culture, and then we have the Director of Culture. From there, we have the Superintendent of the Odisha State Museum, under whom we have the Curator, Office Superintendent, and the Senior Draftsman. Apart from that, there are many other members of a museum, such as the gallery attendants, conservators, co-conservators, and manuscriptologists, epistemologists, and numismatologists. So, how many departments are there in Odisha State Collection? There are approximately 11 departments, and they have a collection of organic as well as inorganic artifacts. This have been divided into stone, metals, and the organic artifacts. Under stone, we have the archaeology. The archaeology gallery has 237 stone sculptures. Some of them are large sculptures and some of them are within a height of 2 to 3 feet. So they have separate galleries regarding the archaeology. The quality and quantity is enough for engaging the visitors within the museum. There are certain issues which we'll discuss as we go ahead. There is also an armory section, a manuscript section. The manuscript section contains the largest amount of artifact. They have about like 37,000 manuscripts. Hardly, I think, 200 manuscripts are in display. The rest are in the archives of the storage archives of the museum. Then we have the bone section, the painting section, the art and craft section. There is an epigraphy section, numismatics, natural history, anthropology, and the antiquities at the central store. Apart from that, we have the conservation wing. a library, and a mining and a geology gallery as well. Yeah. So as we enter first into the archaeology section. Now, I'm very thankful for Intact for upgrading the website of Odisha State Museum, where they have created a virtual gallery for the bronze gallery as well as the stone or the archaeology section. So the archaeology section has about 9 subsections or sub galleries within that section, and they have filled it from early historical stone sculptures till 1700s. So we have some from neighboring states as well, some collected from Bihar, such as from Sarnath. There are some also collected from Madhya Pradesh as well. So for a gallery which has about 237 stone artifacts, it consists of the various religious artifacts starting from Buddhism and the different cults of Hinduism regarding Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and Saktaism. I felt that the collection regarding the Sakta cult was very vivid, and the quality of the work of the stone sculptures in the Sakta cult was much more in a better condition. They had not been that much damaged, and they exhibited the iconography in a very like a very descriptive manner. As you see in front of us, we have the two extremities of the Sakta cult. On the right hand side, we have the Varahi, which represents the full-fledged materialism within the Hinduism, and then on the left hand side we have Chamundi, which represents the austerism of Hinduism. So they are both representing the entire spectrum of the Hindu religion. Now, we have so many wonderful images. They are preserved well. We have such a nice gallery where the environmental conditions are maintained well. The only problem within this museum is that they are not engaging the visitor with some textual material. That is, there should be some form of description about these iconographies, about these sculptures, how they come about, where they were collected from, how they reflect with the history of Odisha. There is no mention about such kind of material. So if that is provided by the museum authorities or by the curators, then maybe the experience of the people within the gallery will be much more better. Now, this has been done through Intact because they have this interactive session where we can click on some of the sculptures and know some history. So if this history is at least taken out in a printed format, or maybe in a audio-visual room where we can explain some of these artifacts, then it can be a great interactive way with the visitors to increase their inquisitiveness for this heritage materials. Now, this is the section where they have the smaller artifacts within 2 to 3 feet in height. Now, as you can see that they are just laid out in a grid pattern across the room, and they have a well-lit area. But the only problem is that this light is not creating a mood. It just looks like a collection, and there is no description. No such description regarding how it was collected and what do they represent. Because when you go into a museum, you want to educate yourself regarding your culture. You just don't want to be a visitor. You want to look, you want to learn, so that whatever you learn, you can take it back with you and reminisce in that. So I feel that if there is some form of explanation, either through an audiovisual or only through audio cassette tapes, or some form of electronic system through which the visitor can take and learn about these artifacts, it can be much more better. Now, I selected few of the pieces from the ivory section. The ivory section collections were taken or were donated by the ruler of Orissa from the former erstwhile Gajapati of Puri. And these were collected by him probably from 1600s to 1700s. The workmanship on the ivory materials represent a little bit from the Rajasthani culture, as well as few of the medieval Odia culture, and they are preserved well. But then again, they should have some form of story to tell how they can connect with the people of Orissa, and the visitors can learn about them. Because in in medieval section or in ancient history, there are certain objects which show how the Odia people used to export elephants in ship. So they have this stone sculpture. I didn't have the photograph for this. They had a stone sculpture or a stone inscription or an engraving in which they are trying to show that people are transporting elephants. So at some extent, this state was, or this region of India was selling domesticated elephants for war as well as for other purposes. So therefore, ivory must have been a very important source of income for them. So this could have been explained in some of the areas, which they have not done so. This is another article which I loved within the ivory section. It is the image of Saraswati. And then we have the numismatic sections where they have collected a lot of copper grants, or I think they were called as copper plate grants. Yeah. So they were donated by the medieval feudal lords or rulers to the priestly class, where they can take note of their area and manage that regional area under their administration. So some of these inscriptions are in either Sanskrit or old Odia inscription, which is very difficult to understand. They have a combination of Telugu and Bengali, Hindi, so and some words are Odia and Sanskrit as well. So it is very difficult to understand some of these words. But the epigraphy department has done an amazing work in reconstructing the history. Apart from that, where I felt they have connected with the visitors is through their visual representation of the intangible cultural heritage of Orissa. So there are many instances in the museum where they have displayed the religious festivals of Orissa through models. Now, right in front of you, like this was an exhibit within the textile department or the textile section, where they show how girls celebrate the festival of Raja, which is a fertility festival, which comes during the month of July. And they have shown the textiles of Orissa and how they are worn, the wearing style of the clothes. And in other sections of the museum, such as in the corridors and passageways, they have displayed the tribal culture, the animistic religious ideologies of the tribes of Orissa is also been represented. So when it comes to visual representation through models, yes, we have that. But I feel that there should be much more on the reading materials available within the museum. Again, this was the filigree section. So what they have done is that where they have put or they have displayed the filigree artifacts. At the backdrop, they have put these huge posters of the lanes where this profession is being carried out. Now, filigree is a silver jewelry made out of silver wire, and this was a craft that was carried out through generations. Now, during the freedom struggle under the British rule, this had faced a lot of problem in reviving it. Post-independence, the revival had become easier because there were a lot of fundings from the center as well as state government and from private donors to increase the people and be a consumer for this product. Now this product has implemented within the world economy and is also creating a source of income for the craftsmen who are associated with this skill. Some of the regions, they have also put up some of these barriers which look like hand and fingers, so that it correlates with the artifact which is being displayed behind that barrier. Because on the right hand side image, it is a display of bangles or karas as they call it in the language. Yeah, so this was the filigree section and some of the parts of it. Now coming to the museum extension service. Now, Orissa State Museum does a lot of work, and since 2010, they have increased their extension services regarding correlating their activities with the general public. So they do conduct a lot of debate or art competitions, usually on the foundation day or on some other days like maybe on the 15th of August or maybe Children's Day as well. Apart from that, they have a growing garden where they do flower shows, and for consecutive years they have also won the best flower arrangement in the state of Bhubaneswar. They have a small herbal garden. Yeah, so they carry out, they have a small herbal garden as well within the museum premises, where they have collected the local regional herbs and they have planted them. So now they are turning this into a museum come a biodiversified region where they can exhibit the natural environment of Odisha as well. Again, with the extension services, they conduct heritage walk. Of course, during the COVID period, this faced a lot of flack and they couldn't conduct that. But apart from that, they also conduct certain kind of scholarly activities, such as they celebrate the time capsule, where people can buy some stuff from the museum shop and they can put or make their own time capsule, and then they can bury that capsule either within the museum premises or they can bury it within their own backyard. So they get a concept of what history is and how we can preserve it, how many interactive ways there are. Whenever they acquire a new artifact, if it is important regarding the recollection of history, rewriting of history, then they try to put up some form of meet and greet and discuss about these artifacts. Other services that they have provided, they have this new audio-visual gallery called as the Piker Rebellion Gallery. Now, Piker Rebellion was the first war of independence that started in 1870. This was before the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. Pikers are the warring class people of Odisha. They were like soldierly people and they used to work under the ruler or the emperor. So when the British East India Company took over in 1815, they started agitating against them. And one of the agitation resulted in the Piker Rebellion. So they have represented that in an audiovisual area where they show a screen with the moving pictures, and yeah, they have other statues as well where the visually impaired can touch and feel some of the physical features of the warriors of that period or these freedom fighters. They also have different museum shops, such as the textile museum shop. They also have a Patachitra museum shop and sculptural museum shops as well. Now, coming to the museum architecture, as I talked about, it is postmodern architecture. But when it comes to accessibility, in the last 10 years, they have tried to improve the accessibility of the the physically challenged people. So what they have done is that they have created a ramp for wheelchair users. It is located very much closer to the parking lot, and there are specific spaces or parking areas within 10-meter radius of that ramp. So they are fulfilling some of the building codes as well, because according to the building code, if it is a public institution, then the parking lots for physically disabled should be placed within 10 meters from the accessible entrance. They have a lift, and in that lift, we can easily accommodate one wheelchair and an attendant if that is required. They have also signages to indicate where the wheelchair can enter or go through. Okay. So this is all about the short description of the Odisha State Museum. I hope that I have piqued your interest and you will at least make a timeline to visit the museum. The second museum that I want to talk about is Kalabhumi, that is the Odisha Art and Craft Museum. Now, this museum was established by the Odisha state government as well as the Department of Handloom and Textiles. So this does not come under the Department of Culture. Now, this museum was inaugurated in 2018, and this is a newly made museum. However, the architecture style that they have adopted is vernacular. Vernacular as in sense, something that is native to that region. The vernacular architecture of Orissa comprises of laterite stones, some form of mud adobe walls, as well as roof tiles and thatched roof. They are mostly sloping because it is a region where we have heavy rain. So in order to stop the rain from accumulating on the roof, they have put some of those ideas and concepts in many of those regions. So let us look into how Kalabhumi looks like and some more about it. So where is Kalabhumi located? It is mostly towards the outskirts of the capital city. It is towards the satellite cities of Bhubaneswar, but it is surrounded by residential and commercial zone. The location from the airport is about 5 to 6 kilometers, and the railway connectivity requires more attention, because since the railway is located at the center of the Bhubaneswar, the road travel from the railway station to the museum can attract a lot of traffic if it is during the daytime. Maybe from 1:30 till 4:30, we have heavy traffic through that thoroughfare. So that can be improved. So this museum spreads on 12.68 acres of area, and it has been divided into 8 galleries. Now, these galleries have been further divided into 2 blocks. So each block consists about 4 to 5 galleries. So as you enter in, we enter into the first block, and the first block is connected to the second block through this corridor. To this corridor where they have a water body. We will know the reason why they did that. And furthermore, the other half of the site has been divided into an amphitheater, a workshop, and some form of areas such as the administrative building for the museum. So the 8 galleries that we have under the Art and Craft Museum are terracotta, traditional painting, that is Patachitra, stone and wood carving, the metal crafts, natural crafts, tribal crafts, weaving, and handloom. So this is the vista when we enter into the museum. So they have this large green trees. They have saved those trees from the existing site. They did not cut it down, and they wanted to be more green. And throughout the site, they have put some of these architectural elements which are very common to the rural art of Orissa, or the rural architecture of Orissa. So they have placed, if you look at the lower image, they have placed a Tulsi plant within the called as Tulsi Chaura, and that Tulsi Chaura is made out of terracotta. Yeah, so this is the central courtyard with water bodies and large trees. The reason why they have placed the central courtyard between the 2 blocks is that they can break the visitors' fatigue. Now, if you have studied museum, then you will know what a visitor's fatigue is. When we show too much of information to a visitor without giving them a break to assimilate that information within their brain, they become tired very soon. So after 5 minutes of visiting a gallery, when they take a lot of information, they need some rest. Some rest so that the brain can attract the information that they have received and to re-assimilate them, to think about them so that it stays in their memory. So for that purpose, if they are not given that break, the fatigue goes stronger and stronger. And once they become too tired, if their brain becomes too tired, they are not interested to be in that museum anymore. They stop enjoying the artifacts of the museum, the environment of the museum, and they want to move out of that museum quick. So what they have done is that to break that visitor's fatigue, they have brought in the natural elements like water, air, and the blue sky. The blue sky, the green trees, they break away the monotony of information. They provide a fresh refreshment of an open space, and they stay there, they stand there for some time, and then they enter into the block 2 with a refreshed mind. Apart from that, they have the museum amphitheater or the open air theater, where they conduct a lot of functions. Okay, now when you enter into some of these galleries, I saw that they have a lot of artifacts. They have collected various artifacts from many rural regions of Odisha. But then, just like Odisha State Museum, these objects lack a description. Like when I entered into the bronze equipment, there were a lot of utensils, but they did not tell me a story as to how these equipments were used. Were they used by regular cooks, or were they used by women? Were they used during weddings, or were they used during funerary services? What were they used for? Were all of them used for cooking? Maybe some of them were used for textile making. So I didn't get any concept regarding, they were just collected. Just like when you walk into a curio shop, you love the artifacts, you feel cozy, but then you don't know what they're used for. So this is exactly what happened within that museum. Again, they had this amazing collection of masks and painted artifacts on wood. Yet there was no description. But if you see, they have this good quality of mask. Probably these are at least 150 to 200-year-old masks that they have collected from the various parts of Odisha. But then they do not tell as to what kind of mythological figure that mask is representing. Neither it also tells about the type of material that the mask has been made of, and were they used for religious purposes or were they used for entertainment purposes? Were they used in some form of ceremony of the temple, or were they used during the night, daytime in rural village as in an act or in a play? So if such kind of details are lost, then the entire engagement of the visitors with the museum is completely, it is missed. And when you miss that, people start walking in and around of that museum just saying that, okay, we have seen some colorful objects. What did they learn? So the learning aspect of the museum slowly fades away. So maybe the curator can take some form of work, or maybe some form of project, and re-implement these ideas and bring forth the description of the objects. So this was again in another one of the craft galleries. They had good amount of collection, but then it missed a chance to indicate how they can relate with the visitors. Some of these artifacts are so antique that you won't find them in any more professional shops. Like many of these craft shops, they don't produce those designs anymore. But then I don't know what is the story behind these artifacts. The only area where I found some form of visual description regarding the object was at the tribal gallery. So in the tribal gallery, they have exhibited artifacts from 62 different tribes of Odisha. Odisha state is the only state in India where there are 62 types of tribe of India. The highest quantity of tribal population is in Madhya Pradesh, but the types of tribe is only in Odisha. So out of the 62 tribes, they have collected about 58 artifacts, and the gallery has been given a sense of as if you're entering into a tribal village. The display areas have been built like as if you're facing the mud wall house, and they have been put into display. So that is all amazing. The architecture style, the display, that is good. But the visual references are going a little awry. Like as you can see, I have highlighted them. What they have done is that they have taken A4 printouts of the artifact being used, and they have just put it against the object. They didn't even put it appropriately where we can look at an eye level, right? It should be at least at 4 feet 6 inches, or maybe at 5 feet height. At eye level, we will be able to absorb the information, but they have placed it right underneath at the foot of the object. So again, this is a missed chance where we could have increased the visual attractiveness of that gallery. When it comes to museum extension services, yes, they are very active. They conduct fashion shows within the museum premises in the handloom section. They also carry out art and craft workshops. They also conduct musical recitals, classic music recitals at the open areas, because it is a 12 point or 13 acre site. So they have a lot of visual vistas where they can carry out some form of performance. They also conduct museum and heritage work. It is a free open event, and there are actually two slots. So one slot is in the evening time during Sunday at 3:30 to 5:30, and another one is on the morning time from 6 o'clock till 8. They have guided tours and they have specific trails, such as the handloom trail, which is a 1 hour, and this is done from Thursday till Sunday. Okay, now we will enter into the Odisha Maritime Museum, which is located in Cuttack. Now, we have already talked about the intangible aspect of sailing or navy within Odisha, how there were merchants and how they used to go out with the change of season into the open seas. So this has been well captured within this museum. So this museum originally was a shipbuilding workshop. This shipbuilding workshop was set up by the Public Works Department under the Department of Military Administration through the efforts of the Scottish engineer Mr. G.H. Faulkner in 1866. And from 1866, this had provided a lot of naval and sailing equipment and other parts of a ship to the other provinces of India from Bihar, Bengal, and nearby locations. So what they have done is that prior to 2010, this was a dilapidated ruin. It didn't have any roof. The walls were crumbling down. A large restoration project was undertaken by the government of Odisha as well as the central government and private NGOs such as Intact were also involved in this project. Now, this museum has 10 number of galleries. In a large section, what they have done is that they have restored the machinery that were used to make the products. So the lathe machines, the cutting machines, the rolling machines, they are all there, they're intact and they are well maintained. And they form a part of the exhibit itself. So this is a good way of showing how restoration can be done without changing the fabric of the structure and the usability of that structure. So this too is spread over at least 10 acres of land, and the architectural style is of Regency architecture, that is of the British colonial architecture, and they have large landscape areas covering the entire museum. There is an open air theatre and there is a replica of a small boat towards the end of the museum. Now the location of the museum is also amazing because this faces the Mahanadi River. It is very close to the Mahanadi River. So there are about 10 to 12 galleries, which starts with the maritime history, the boat and shipbuilding areas. Then we have the monuments on the Odisha coastline. They are also documented. Then we have the workshop, that was the original workshop. Then there are certain galleries where they have depicted the rituals which are connected to the sailing and navy or some other forms of the worship. Then we have a gallery on the navigation, on boat shed area, a sawmill, which is not functioning anymore. The mill is just present there to show how boats were made out of wood. Other than that, they have a children's activity room, a library, and a research center. They also have an aquarium, and they have an audiovisual or a multimedia hall. So I have taken some aspects of the museum. This is the boat building gallery. Now, what they have denoted is how the ancient people, they used to make the boat out of wood and how they used to make this boat by hand. So in the middle of the section of the gallery, they have displayed this human size scale of a dinghy or a boat and how it has been made. And on the walls, what they have done is that they have represented it through dioramas and other pictorial representation of boat making. So people have some form of information when they are walking around this area. This is the maritime history gallery, where On the wall, they have documented the regaining or the restoration of the museum building, how it was restored from a dilapidated condition into the present museum as it is. They have also collected various artifacts related to navy, sailing, and boat making, and they have accumulated it within this gallery. This is the ship building shed, where the different kinds of boats and sailing devices or ships of India have been displayed in a smaller scale. So we have the Shikara from Jammu and Kashmir. We have the types of boat that are used in Kerala, some from other parts of India as well. So this is the life-size replica of a small boat which they have placed towards the end of the museum. Now, this originally was a place where the produced ships were shifted or transported from the warehouse into the nearby river, because there are two gates which open, and this used to be filled with water. And because it was filled with water, it was easy to transport or maneuver the ships. Other ships which require repair were also connected through this channel, and they would enter into the workshop, get repaired, and then they would go back into the river. So they have used it, and people can climb into it. So it is okay. I think they have maintained it well. There is some form of interactivity for people to look for, since most of the visitors to this museum are aged between 8 to 16. Now we will go and have a look at the tribal museum in Koraput. So Koraput is towards the western part of Odisha. It is an area where we have a large section of tribal people. Now this museum was founded in 1992, and it holds the importance because it has display of the tribal culture of Odisha. And these have been collected from the various groups that are present in that region. So what was the intention? The intention was to preserve and create an awareness about the tribal culture. The museum presently is looked after the Council of Analytical Tribal Studies. So if any one of you is interested in ethnographic studies or how ethnographic museums have been set up by private owners, then maybe you can look into this museum as one of your case studies. The museum is a small museum, but the artifact it holds is invaluable. The galleries showcase a broad spectrum of tribal artifacts, but the museum devotes as much to the cultural and historical record of different tribes of the region as it does to their arts and craft. So what does this mean? They have collected and displayed the arts and craft of the various tribes, but apart from that, they are also showcasing or representing the cultural heritage of the tribes as well. So during the peak season of the museum, they have dance and performance from the local tribes. They let people interact with the tribe and collect as much information as they can regarding their lifestyle. So this museum originally was a colonial bungalow built about 150 years back, because earlier this used to be a tea district. It functioned as a tea district association office from 1862 to 1953, and they recruited laborers for the tea gardens of Assam. So we are talking now about migration of labor. So this is how the tribal people from this region were employed in the cha bagans or the tea gardens of Assam. So they have taken the notice of that history of how this building was used, and they have placed appropriate information regarding the building's usage prior of it becoming a museum. Now this has been taken over by INTAC of the Koraput chapter. So the building was purchased by the Dandakaranya Development Authority, that's the Forest Development Authority from the British, and then they wanted to demolish it because the structure was completely in a ruinous state. But however, they took help and they restored it and converted it into a tribal museum in 1992. So these are some of the artifacts that they have displayed within the museum. They have displayed the true ethnographic weapons used by the tribal people. They have also given some textual reference and visual reference as to how these instruments or these weapons were used. Apart from that, they have costumes, ornaments, agricultural implements, they have kitchen implements as well, and they have few models of the hut of those tribes. And there's another gallery where they have different food grains and cereals and how they were harvested, or what was the methodology used for irrigating their lands. So the amount of varieties of food grains they have is nearly to 235. And apart from that, they have also some pictorial representation regarding the flora and fauna and the medicinal plants within that region. This was another interesting fact that I noticed, was that towards the entrance, this is how they have represented the tribal culture and integrated them within the museum. How? They have taken the concept of sacred grove. Now, sacred grove is very common in India, where trees of spiritual and holy nature are worshipped, and these trees are protected by the community. So they do not allow anyone to cut it or disfigure those trees. So they have taken that concept of sacred grove and they have integrated them within the museum environment. Okay, now this is another museum. This is called as the Odi Art Center, which is in Chilika. We were talking about how in 2000, post 2010, how the number of natural sites in Odisha increased, how the tourist department was trying to integrate them within the tourism industry. So Chilika is one such natural landscape or wonderful area which has been very thoroughly, it has engaged a lot of naturalists and educationists as well as people who love about the environment into its fold. But the area in Chilika lacked some sort of museum where it can display the culture of Odisha, because there are certain visitors who come to Odisha just to enjoy the natural landscape. So what do? They visit Chilika, they visit Bhitarkanika, another natural heritage site, and from there they go back again to other places. So they don't visit the complete entire state of Odisha. So for them, they don't have that much time because they spend at least a week within these 2 to 3 districts. So if we have a museum at a nearby location, then they can interact with the culture of Odisha and they can know something about how this state can provide to the cultural upliftment of India as well. So the center was built by the Purvasha Folk and Tribal Art Museum with the financial support from Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and Department of Tourism and Culture, Government of Odisha. So this is where the Triple P model is seen, the public-private partnership. They had the center was actually developed by the Society for Development of Rural Literature, which is a registered non-profit cultural society. So more than a museum, it acts as an incubation center where artists from different regions and of different financial backgrounds are asked to create some form of exhibit or galleries. This includes both the performance as well as visual arts. So the entry is 50 per entry. For students, it is much more less. For overseas visitors, it is 500, and if we have a digital camera, we have to pay something more. They also allow wedding shoots within that region because they have, I think they have an auditorium where we can conduct parties as well. So the type of galleries that they have the Purvasha Folk and Tribal Art Museum where they showcase the folk and tribal art artifacts. They have the Rangmanch or a theater, which is OAT. They have a library where they have kept books and journals regarding the preservation of the tribal arts. And they have a documentation center. They have a business center. They have a training center, which is called as Gurukul. And they have a small restaurant as well. So these are some of the images from the Purvasha Folk and Tribal Art Museum. So as you can see, most of the artifacts are visual artifacts, and they have been made by upcoming artists. So this functions more like an art gallery rather than a museum. But in a way, they have also taken account of some of the other tribal artifacts which I did not have the permission to take photographs of. When we are talking about the performance, how they allow artists to come and perform for their visitors, this is one such instance. This is the Bagh dance or the tiger dance. Now in India, we have different forms of tiger dance in different states. So this is one which you find in Orissa. Again, this is the street plays and theatres or jatras where they carry out through that region. This was also funded by the museum. And about the art exhibitions in 2020, from December 10th till January 31st, they were supposed to conduct, or they have conducted it, I'm not sure about that, but it was there in their website that they were to conduct the first international folk and tribal art exhibition. And they had invited artists all from India, somewhere from international artists as well, from Korea, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Myanmar. This is the OIT where they are doing an awareness play on the shelduck. So shelduck is a bird. It is a migratory bird that comes from Siberian region during the month of December to Chilika. So they want to conserve this species because the number of species or the population is decreasing every year. So this was a play where they had incorporated the concept or the life of that bird into art. So another museum that we will look into is the Skill Museum. Now the Skill Museum comes under the Department of Technology and Vocational Training. This does not come under the culture. So through our slideshow, I'm trying to show that how different organizations within the government have taken up this idea of establishing their own museums where they want to showcase the work that they have collected through these last decades. So this is set inside the government ITI of Cuttack, and this is a vocational training course. So they required a museum to inspire the students that who come into the museum to take the livelihood as an inspiration to grow up in life. So I was there when they were carrying out the construction. This is an area where they have created a display area for some of the artifacts that are produced by their students. This was in the beginning of 2020. So this was January 2020. They had set up this gallery. And then we have some images where they have collected the art objects made by the students and displayed in that area. Yeah. So the last museum for today's discussion is the Archaeological Museum in Konark. Now, Konark is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And this is probably the only World Heritage Site in the Eastern Indian region. I think that our Ministry of Tourism and Culture or Ministry of Culture should make sure that we have more number of sites within this region, because there are sites which have living heritage in them. So if we increase the number of sites or this tourist attraction, then we can increase the possibility of museums coming up. What they have done is that this entire Konark Museum is filled with archaeological excavated objects. So these are stone artifacts collected from various archaeological sites and remains and excavated areas, and they have put it up together in this museum. So you won't find any other material within this museum. You won't find metal, you won't find organic artifacts as well. Now what they have done is that they have tried to recreate some of these artifacts as to how they were connected to the building. Like for example here, these are two stone pillars, and these stone pillars now are supporting a display which would have actually in original would have held a frieze or a border decorated with elements from temple architecture. Then again, they have also collected many other excavated objects. They have also put up a Braille script for the visually impaired people to touch and feel and read about these artifacts. Now, for a World Heritage site and for a World Heritage Museum, I felt that the labeling was not up to mark. They could have been more interactive with the label, at least bigger and better pictures could have been put up. The text was also very common, as if somebody had used a project report and put it up in display. So maybe that can be improved. Yeah, again, when you enter into the museum, you will see that there are a lot of Braille scripts put up on the wall, and this encourages people from the visually impaired community to come and touch and feel and know more about the history of Konark. There were certain sections where they have actually rebuilt these broken artifacts, and they have put them up as if they have come back to life. So they had reconstructed the wall of one of the areas of Konark, and they have put these artifacts that they have collected from that region there as if they were put in original condition. They have also a life-size scale of the Konark Wheel. Thank you so much. So this is some of the picture courtesy. I want to thank the MAMS of India, the Incredible India, as well as Panther Nivas, and the different other museum websites for allowing us to take their photographs and some of the reference points. Thank you. Sir?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jignesh ji. It's a really beautiful journey of all the museums in Odisha. You have started from this location of the museums, and as you stated that in 2000 there was 21 museums, but nowadays there are more than 81 museums. So it means that this movement started once and now it's spread everywhere. And another, you are giving most important information of the virtual galleries of Odisha State Museum. So ये भी बहुत आवश्यक बात है आज की तारीख में, जो नई जनरेशन नई टेक्निक्स को ध्यान रखते हुए म्यूजियम जो अपने आप को एक नई प्रक्रिया में लेके जा रहे हैं. और लास्ट में आपने कोणार्क म्यूजियम के बारे में जो बताया कि एज पर द हेरिटेज वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट नॉर्म्स इस लेवल पर जहां का म्यूजियम होना चाहिए, मगर जिस संग्रहालय में अभी भी प्रॉपर लेबलिंग और ये जो इट मीन्स द नीड ऑफ द म्यूजियम, तो क्या जरूरत है संग्रहालय में, हमें क्या बदलाव करने की आवश्यकता है, इसके बारे में भी आपने बहुत अच्छी जानकारी दी. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. वैसे देखा जाए तो कई बार ऐसा होता है कि हम नंबर ऑफ द म्यूजियम्स काउंट करते हैं कि कितने संग्रहालयों की जानकारी मिली, बट हियर अगर संख्या कम है मगर उसकी सुंदरता कितनी है. जैसे हमें देखते हैं कि एक स्टेट म्यूजियम भुवनेश्वर में जब विजिट करते हैं तो फ्रॉम मॉर्निंग टू इवनिंग कंप्लीट डे आई स्पेंड इन दैट म्यूजियम ओनली. एक दिन पूरा उस म्यूजियम के लिए लगा था. एक दिन हमने खंडगिरी उदयगिरी के उस वहां पर दिया था, और एक दिन फिर वहां का जो प्रसिद्ध जो एक स्तूप का साइट है वहां पर शांति स्तूप उधर विजिट किए थे. तो ये एक्चुअली, और मेरे लिए विशेष बात ये रही कि ओडिशा स्टेट म्यूजियम में बहुत अच्छे बुक्स मिलते हैं, जो उनके पब्लिकेशंस है. इट्स रियली गुड, क्योंकि मैंने अभी तक जितने संग्रहालय में, हमारे यहाँ पूना का जो राजा केळकर म्यूजियम है वहां जिस तरह की किताबें मिलती है, या फिर विश्वेश्वरैया टेक्निकल म्यूजियम वहां पर जैसे मिलता है, उसी तरह से बहुत अच्छी किताबें यहाँ इस संग्रहालय में प्राप्त होती है. सालाजी म्यूजियम हैदराबाद में भी, CSVM छत्रपति शिवाजी म्यूजियम मुंबई में भी प्राप्त होती है. तो वैरायटीज ऑफ एंड डिफरेंट टॉपिक्स को लेकर कवर करके बहुत अच्छी किताब, मैंने वहां जितने पब्लिकेशंस थे वो सारे खरीद लिए थे उस समय. तो ये मुझे आज भी याद है. तो बहुत अच्छा आपने जानकारी हमारे साथ शेयर की. If there are any questions, because of less time, I just invite 1 or 2 questions only. If there are any, अगर कुछ सवाल है तो कृपया जरूर पूछिए. ओके, यहाँ पर आपके लिए कमेंट्स आए हैं. वेरी वंडरफुल प्रेजेंटेशन, थैंक यू सो मच. सविता जी ने लिखा है, फिर कुलगौरवी जी ने लिखा है, वेरी नाइस प्रेजेंटेशन. ओके, गरिमा शर्मा जी ने थैंक यू, ग्रेट प्रेजेंटेशन। साईनाथ जी ने भी लिखा है थैंक यू, थैंक्स अ लॉट टू ऑल ऑफ यू फॉर दिस योर अप्रिसिएशन। एंड हियर आर नो एनी क्वेश्चंस, किसी को कोई सवाल?
हेलो सर।
यस
हेलो हाँ। Thank you very much for a very nice presentation on Orissa. I'm happy that you are also an architect and into urban planning. So I just wanted to ask one question कि पूर्वज पहले जो साइट्स है पहले के, वहाँ सोकेज पिट्स we've seen for rainwater harvesting and water. Nowadays in urban planning they are not seen. Why? Where have they disappeared? Why it got disappeared? Now that they advocate rainwater harvesting, but soakage pits are missing in the urban planning. In cement roads and cement gutters are there. But
Parag ji, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but is it the question related to Odisha State Museums only?
No, not at all, not at all. I just wanted to ask him this.
So I sincerely, humbly request to all of you that please ask the questions only related to the sessions. And if there are any other questions, then you can send on WhatsApp so that I can forward it to Jignesh ji and he will answer directly to you. Very sorry if I'm wrong, but please try to understand. Yes. Thank you. And Ji, yes.
So I don't mind answering the answer, but yes, we should give us some kind of sanctity and respect to the medium right now we are talking about. Since we are talking about museums, yes, we will discuss more about it. But sir, if you have questions on urban planning and why we have such notions, then I'm ready to talk with in private on WhatsApp or maybe on some other platform. I don't have any issues.
I will share Jignesh ji's number to Parag ji and Parag ji's number also. So thanks a lot again. आपने बहुत अच्छी जानकारी हम सबके साथ साझा की, इसलिए मैं आपका शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ। यहाँ समय भी ज्यादा हो चुका है, इसलिए मैं आपको ज्यादा तकलीफ नहीं देना चाहूंगा। अगर किसी को कुछ सवाल है, आप व्हाट्सएप में भी पूछेंगे, तब हम वो जो है शेयर करेंगे और सभी को इसका जो है सोल्यूशन मिल सकेगा। So thanks a lot again, and with your kind permission, Jignesh ji, now we'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.